Rev up your engines!
Well, here's some possible good news. Ford and General Motors are looking into making medical equipment, including ventilators, to stop the virus. Now, if you know anything about history, in World War II, of course, all the car manufacturers stopped making cars. They made tanks, guns, airplanes. Of course, it ended up winning the war. Now, even the famous Japanese commander, Yamamoto, he had spent a year in the United States. And when he heard that they were going to declare war on the United States, he was running around warning the Japanese, saying, hey, we only make 60, 70,000 cars a year. They make hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them in the United States. Now, don't think if you declare war on them, in a short period of time, they can make all those car factories into tanks, airplane, and machine gun factories, which is, of course, what happened. Well, they didn't listen to him back then, and when after Pearl Harbor, it didn't come out all that well for the Japanese, so don't poo-poo the ability of manufacturing processes to turn around and start making things. You're not going to be making cars probably for a little while. Use it for that. In an emergency, things need to change. Factories are factory, let them start doing something like that. Even Elon Musk said that, to quote him, we will make ventilators if there is a shortage. I kind of take stuff that man says with a grain of salt, considering that his factory at the present time is still making cars in California, even though the sheriffs in that district said it's a non-essential business that shouldn't be making cars anymore. He's still got the guys making cars. So, kind of wonder about that one. Because as it stands now, and another quote, Tesla said that they believe under federal rules, it should be counted as a national critical infrastructure, making these electric cars. As it stands now, they're trying not to shut the factories down, even though they've been told they're supposed to shut them down. That's the problem with some of these things that are going on now. You have to be enforcement behind the things, and of course, they should be professional about it. When they say, you shouldn't run your factory, you shouldn't run the factory. You shouldn't just keep not caring about the infrastructure. All the other big companies here in the United States, Ford, GM, they're shutting their plants down. They were attempting to shut them down a little bit and then clean the machines and put the next shift on, but guy got sick, so they stopped that. Now they're closing them down for a while. So I don't know about Elon. That's got me questioning things. The big car makers are saying, hey, you want ventilators? We got to make them. We'll start making them. Hey, that shows American know-how. They did it in World War II. They can certainly do it now. Instead of fighting an army of people, you're fighting these tiny little viruses. These viruses are 1/1,000,000th the mass of the human cells that they invade. Human cells are pretty tiny. Imagine something that's 1/1,000,000th the mass of that. We're talking tiny. Well, you wonder how the virus is going to affect the car world. Well, the car shows are all canceled. But even in California now, where they're getting some stringent rules, the shutdown order has exempted gas stations, auto repair, and related facilities. So, looks like Scotty's still going to have to keep working fixing cars. And the guys down the street at AutoZone are still going to be selling parts for him. So, at least that part you don't have to worry about now. It's like anything else. Machines break, you got to fix them. And now the time's better than anything. You got all kinds of time. Hey, if you need something fixed, hey, why not take it into the garage? Have the guy fix it. Keep the economy going. Now, the car dealerships, most of those are still open. But it turns out that the sales are way down. Of course, who's thinking about buying a car during this epidemic? So, as far as I can see, there's probably going to be quite a few car dealerships that might end up going under unless they get some type of extension on payments, because most all the car dealerships, they're just like you. They got a bunch of cars sitting there. They have notes on each one. They don't own the cars. They're paying notes on them. They got a bank loan. So I'm assuming the banks are going to have to extend credit on these things and delay repayment on some of these loans. Otherwise, a bunch of people are going to go bankrupt. Let's say it's 2 or 3 months, and these big dealerships that have hundreds of cars, they got to pay the notes on the cars every month. If they got no money coming in and not selling cars, alleviate that situation by extending the repayment, maybe cutting down on the interest rate or something like that, because you don't want all these car places going out of business and then all these cars are just sitting there and they would be repoed, and that would be a real stink. We'll see what happens, but at least for the time being, you can get car parts. You can find guys like me to fix cars. So, well, it looks like the Italian car manufacturers, just like the American car manufacturers, talking about making ventilators. Ferrari and Fiat Chrysler are talking to the nation's biggest ventilator manufacturer in Italy to help boost production of those machines. Well, I don't want to be a sad sack here, but Ferrari and Fiat making ventilators. Well, let's just say Fiat quality isn't the greatest thing on earth. I don't know if I'd want a Fiat around me if I was in a hospital. And if Ferrari's going to be making them, what are they going to make, $100,000 ones like their cars that only the rich can afford to have a Ferrari ventilator hooked up to them? Who knows? In reality, of course, they're talking about making some parts helping with the assembly of the ventilators. So since they've got assembly lines, hey, if other people can crank out the main parts and they can help with some ancillary parts that are easier to make, then they could send them all to these factories and put them together fast. In World War II in England, that's how they built a lot of their planes. They even had guys in their sheds in the backyard making parts of the wings out of plywood and stuff, and then sending them to a central place to have them all put together. You'd be amazed what people can actually accomplish if things are organized correctly, and people who have skills, like in England, a lot of guys had woodworking skills. And there's still, back then, World War II, there were still a lot of wood parts on planes that these guys, and fabrics on the wings that they could put together at home and little shops, and then send them in and put them together in the main assembly hall where they were building the actual airplanes, where you needed a lot of space. So it'll be interesting to see what happens then. Will Ferrari make $1 million ventilator? Ned G says, if you don't trust KBB, Edmunds, etc., where do you suggest we look for an accurate value of a used vehicle? Ask a guy like me. Ask a mechanic who understands the business, who knows what things are worth. I've even made videos on those books. You know, originally they were actually quite honest things, like Kelly Blue Book. A guy named Kelly made it. It was a pretty accurate, when I was a young mechanic in the 60s, it was a pretty accurate valuation of the vehicles. But as time went on, these companies got bought out by big companies that mainly sell used cars. So, of course, it's totally ridiculously inflated with high values because they're trying to sell you a bunch of used cars. You think they're going to say they're worth 50 cents? No, they're going to keep raising it. And then eventually, people, unfortunately, will often believe something that's printed in a book, and they think that these values are actually real, which of course they aren't. And they don't even take into account logical things like you buy a car at a used car lot at a dealer, right? They're generally financing it. You pay them so much a month. They're making money on the interest. They can charge more because they're loaning you money. They're giving you a car. They're trusting that you're going to pay for it. Say you're buying from a private individual. They're not going to finance it unless they're really close friends. And even then, as they say, never sell a car to a friend or they'll become an enemy quickly. And that's true, let me tell you. Seen a lot of that. They're only going to take cash. You pay cash for a car, it goes for a lot less than if you're making a monthly payment. I don't care what anybody says. And if they say there's no difference, they're living in la-la land. Because most people, they can't come up with $15,000 cash, but they can easily pay $200-300 a month. Those book values, ask a real mechanic like me what a car's worth, and they'll tell you. And especially there's a difference between cash and if you're financing it. You're going to pay a lot more if you finance it. That's just how the world works. Tattooed girl says, Scotty, I'm looking for my first car. I came across a Dodge Avenger for $600, but it needs a battery and oil. Should I buy it? What should I look for? You should look for something else. And if you're talking about one for $600, it's probably got 3 of the 4 tires in the junkyard already, and the 4th one's just waiting to roll into the junkyard. Don't even think about buying those things. Those are terrible cars, and for $600, I can just about guarantee you it is completely fallen apart, and it isn't worth anything. Do not put any kind of money into an old car like that. That is a junky car anyway, and at that price range, you know it's going to have serious problems. Now, if you can find, let's say, an old Toyota or Honda that maybe went through hail damage, and it's dinged all over from the hail, but it still runs good, or the fenders are ripped off, hey, do that before you get a Dodge Avenger. Believe me, you buy an old used one for $600, it's not going to last long, I'm telling you. So, Scotty, I got 2 questions. I got a Toyota 2GR V6 3.5 liter, 266 horsepower, hooked to an Asian 5-speed automatic. It's smooth, runs great. but it doesn't get very good gas mileage. It's the same as it's rated, but I don't like it. You gotta realize if you're gonna buy a car for gas mileage, the smaller the engine, the better the gas mileage you're gonna get, unless you're towing stuff, and small engines won't get good gas mileage towing because they're not made to pull heavy weights. You would have got that same vehicle with a 4-cylinder engine, you get a bunch better gas mileage. V6 engine, especially a 266 horsepower one, it's gonna use more fuel. You're getting what it's rated. That's why it was rated for that, and it's worn, and it's amazing it's still getting the same rated gas mileage with that mileage that it did when it was made brand new and rated for it. So next time you get a vehicle you want better gas mileage, get the 4-cylinder Camry, don't get the V6.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.